Mother. The demon mother waited in a large chamber room she had created long ago out of darkness. The chamber walls were constructed from black, reflective slate that gleamed in the flickering candlelight, showing her images of evils from other dimensions, other realms of being. She considered these images, watching with a slight smile as a man in a city basement removed and ate the heart of another man. Her walls echoed with the scream of suffering and the sounds of ravenous hunger. Bring me enough of those hearts, and I'll give you the means to collect even more. Her promise whispered through her world and out into the human man's mind like a subconscious spell. She raised her horned head as her husband entered the chamber. "Is our son still asleep?" she asked. "For now," Father answered, flames dancing along his arms, his skin cracked like burnt earth. "But he will wake soon." She thought about this and sighed long, cold breaths. "That won't be ideal," she said. Father agreed. Their son had slept for thousands of years, lying dormant in tormented dreams. It had been better that way. Father kneeled before Mother and took her hand, black smoke mixing with flame and searing heat, perfuming the room with ash and brimstone. She touched his hardened face with a soft hand and smiled. "But we will manage." Awaken. He had been asleep for so long that he had forgotten his own name. As his mind jolted awake and his thoughts began to race with a million confused questions, he searched his memory for the name. What had his mother christened him when he was born? What had his father called him the last time they spoke? The name was there in 1,000 fragments of memory, hovering somewhere just out of reach. He couldn't remember. But he could remember Mother and Father, and as he sat up and peered into the darkness, he remembered they had been bitter and cruel. They had locked him in this chamber. But he was awake now and felt a calling. There was a man, somewhere in another dimension, a different world, a far-off plane of existence, who was calling him. He was being summoned. After all these years lost in the darkness, he hadn't been forgotten. Somewhere, someone knew his name. Someone was begging him to awake and finish what he had started long ago. He picked up a large spear that had been collecting dust and thought about beating hearts and the smell of warm blood. He would answer the call. The summoning. Mason stared at the brown paper bag on the kitchen counter, which was leaking a pinkish fluid all over the marble, even though he had asked the butcher to double wrap it. The summoning spell had been vague about its requirements, but fresh heart had been on the list. Mason hadn't been sure if this meant a human heart or if any animal heart would be accepted. He was going to start his attempt with a cow heart and see if that took. He had spent months contacting professors in Rome, Berlin, and Egypt, who specialized in ancient theological texts, pleading for their help. He had read countless books on old gods and goddesses, and had read the Bible, the Quran, and the Torah multiple times looking for some speck of information on what he was after. After all his research and reading, he had compiled a short stack of papers that easily fit into a slim manila folder. a compilation of all known history and instruction on summoning the demon. A demon whose name he didn't even know, that could only be summoned in a manner which wasn't totally clear, to take revenge on the man who had destroyed Mason's family. He opened up the bag and looked down at the cow heart, big, red, and slick. His stomach turned as he thought about how later he would be cutting this heart into tiny bits and consuming it raw as a show of worthiness to his demon. "I've lost my mind," he said aloud. He knew it was the truth, because one had to be mad to do such a thing as he was planning on doing this evening.